All right, Job chapter 18, let's call this one chipping away in their feelings, ad hominem. Ad hominem being defined by the Cambridge Dictionary as an argument or a criticism directed against a person rather than against what that person says, which seems to sum up what Bildad is doing in this chapter when, much like Eliphaz, in his turn up to bat, is going to start with an expression of what seems to be some hurt feelings when in verse 3 of chapter 18, he's going to say, "Why are we counted as cattle? And why are we stupid in your sight?" Seeming to pick up on the very same offense that Eliphaz seemed to start off his criticism with. The difference being that even though Eliphaz seemed to be able to spend some time directing his attention back to God, Bildad is going to go straight into his criticism of Job, veiled, much like Eliphaz, in a treatise on the wicked, which really just seems to be a checklist of things he sees Job going through. As we see verse 5 say, "Indeed, the light of the wicked is put out, and the flame of his fire does not shine." It's going to get real personal, it seems, around verse 11 when he's going to say, "Terrors frighten him on every side," referring back to something Job has already said, "The very things that I feared chase me down." Verse 13, or really verse 12, he's going to say, "His strength is famished," which is not all that original, understanding that Job in the very last chapter started off verse 1 by saying, "My spirit is broken." Verse 13, it's going to be, ironically enough, similar to Job once again when he says, "It consumes the parts of his skin." Understanding that a debilitating skin ailment is not necessarily a characteristic of the wicked, but it is a specific characteristic of what Job is going through. But they're going to go on in verse 16 to say, "His roots dry up beneath and his branches wither above." Once again, going to something that Job has made plain, the fact that he's exhausted. Verse 17, "His memory perishes from the earth, and he has no name in the street." It's going to go back in verse 18 to talk about he is thrust from light into darkness. Understanding that most of what Job is saying is the way in which he is confused as to why any of this is happening. And once again, Bildad is going to seem to pick specifically at what Job has lost in verse 19 when he says he has no posterity or progeny among his people and no survivors where he used to live. Understanding that Job specifically has just lost all his kids. He's going to go on to conclude, "They of the West are appalled at his day." Understanding Job just used the word appalled to describe the reaction to his condition in the last chapter. And in verse 21, "Surely such are the dwellings of the unrighteous," as he also is going to talk about the ways that people of both the East and the West are appalled at the wicked. He's basically, once again, going down a laundry list of things that Job is going through, now basically redefining his whole concept of what wickedness is based upon his frustration with and quite possibly now his resentment of Job, which in a lot of ways goes back to a specific criticism we skipped over from Eliphaz, which says, verse 20, "The wicked man writhes in pain all his days." Job, however, as we recognize, has now been strengthened in his response to his three friends, now telling them essentially, instead of go away, bring it. Because by the time he gets to chapter 21, he is essentially going to say, look, your theology of the wicked is completely inconsistent with common sense, if nothing else. But before we get there, it's not only inconsistent with common sense, it's also inconsistent with the observation of Israel's wise men who have discussed the complexity of understanding how God deals with the wicked. When in Psalm 73, a psalm we've mentioned before, they give an extended discussion of how frustrating it can be to see the wicked go unpunished for a prolonged period of time. When it says after seeing how long they can go prospering in wickedness, it's going to say in verse 10, "Therefore his people turn back to them and find no fault in them. And they say, how can God know? Is there any knowledge in the Most High? Behold, these are the wicked, always at ease. They increase in riches." Solomon, the one to whom many attribute Ecclesiastes, is going to say in Ecclesiastes 8, beginning around verse 10, "Then I saw the wicked buried. They used to go in and out of the holy place and were praised in the city where they had done such things. This also is vanity, because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily. The heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil." And as one of our sisters noted in Wednesday night class, verse 14 of that same chapter is going to say, "There is a vanity that takes place on the earth, that there are righteous people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked, and there are wicked people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. I said that this also is vanity. Bildad seeming to give us another example of the ways in which Job's friends in their ad hominem attacks on Job have lost their ability to see wickedness in its complexity because they've become so fixated on seeing it through the lens of their frustration with Job.